Give me 1 second to put my thinking cap on, and then we'll get real. They won't let me wear my beret anymore, so I'm wearing my veteran's hat for you guys. Just hit the X on there, Jim. Thank you. All right, guys. Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Wathen. Green Berets say what they mean, and they mean what they say. Like I said, I'm a vet now, but I still mean what I say and say what I mean. Those words might not have the same reverence among you as it does for me and mine, but that's why I'm here today. To bridge the gap that has existed throughout all wars between the soldiers who fight them and the civilians who thankfully support them. Fatima has already introduced you to the concepts and limitations of international humanitarian law, so I'll focus on the application of such codes of conduct. The golden rule, as my parents once explained to me, is to treat others the way you want to be treated. That's what humanitarian law is to us soldiers and veterans, treating others in a manner in which we want to be treated. The U.S. policy is to work within the proportionality of necessary force and security. I believe that the United States Department of Defense manages this homeostasis better than any other country in the world today. Our soldiers shoot back after being fired upon. They observe and confirm targets before pulling the trigger. U.S. troops provide aid to wounded insurgents and provide direct assistance to people whose lives are interrupted throughout the course of war. When such limitations are disregarded, military or police take action to stop injustice, especially when it's coming from within the military family. The problem is that most of what the general population sees throughout the public media is war criminals and soldiers' obituaries. We allow our citizens and citizens of other countries to burn the flag that I defended while condemning soldiers for burning the Quran. Now, I most certainly do not agree with either. I view both as short-sighted, ignorant, inconsiderate methods of gaining negative attention. However, both acts do lie along a very thin line when compared, and yet the punishments differ. You've probably heard of Blackwater, the contracting agency that employed 5 former soldiers who were accused of murdering more than a dozen people. As it turns out, according to the Washington Post, the Honorable Judge Ricardo M. Urbina dismissed the charges on all 5 suspects. You've heard the stories of soldiers, U.S. and NATO alike, who have been accused of similar atrocities. Some guilty, some not. No matter what story you've read or video you've watched, I guarantee those who were to the left and to the right of the camera lens were just as concerned as you are. Very rarely are you, the citizens, privy to those not reported on daily. The many acts of valor, generosity, consideration, and meticulous risk assessment of your soldiers are simply astonishing. Today, we will bridge this timeless gap by using some of Letter Act's tools. The soldier's lens will be our primary tool today as we examine the 4 priorities of global conflict transformation as I see them. We will then apply to this to the momentum of conflict and our nation's ability to harness such power. The first concern of U.S. and NATO troops is force protection. This means that allies come first. Our soldiers protect themselves. After all, if they die, who's going to fight the brutality brought forth by insurgents? To accomplish such a task, the Department of Defense carries a big stick. The American citizen stick, as I like to call it, is made up of aircraft, tanks, rifles, body armor, and so on. Simply put, the U.S. can do more damage than anybody else on this planet, but the military chooses not to do so unless protecting themselves or freeing the oppressed. As a matter of fact, the insignia on all Green Berets reads Deo Presso Liber, to free the oppressed. Voters in Afghanistan have their fingers removed by the Taliban because of the ink residue left from fingerprint signatures on ballots. The Afghan people are not the anti-Afghan forces our soldiers fight. The Afghan people are those in which we free from tyranny. Proportionality is among the highest concerns when steering the world's Leviathan force. The second concern of Team NATO is law and order. These are the laws enforced in order to protect the population at large. Curfews protect the population from nighttime battles. Building police stations that are manned by Afghan National Police ensure consistency. And patrols are a process by which thousands of improvised explosive devices, which would otherwise damage and destroy civilian traffic, are removed constantly. Today's troops are essentially cops walking beats, getting to know the neighborhood and getting to know the people. Beyond the enforcement of basic security principles, soldiers currently engage in peace and nation building. A responsibility once only confined to U.S. peacekeepers and the Department of State in post-war periods. In this aspect, U.S. and NATO troops are very much the helping hands of Afghans. However, when Afghan directives fail to meet domestic codes of conduct, commanders ignore them because it's the right thing to do. The third priority is infrastructure. Give it a minute, this one takes a little while to load. There we go. Infrastructure. One of my medical instructors once told me that the blood can't get to the heart without the arteries and veins. I find that the same is true of logistics in war. All the supplies and aid in the world will do no good without a means of access. Thus, roads and bridges are forged while sprouting checkpoints to ensure their reliability and their safety. These bridges and roads are built by the locals and are resourced by U.S. and NATO forces. Villagers will congregate to help in a day of work for a meal, some fresh water, and a hand crank radio. Infrastructure projects are a win for Afghan nationals because they are employed, even if only for a day, and have a new bridge. These projects are a win for U.S. soldiers as well because we gain a better understanding of who our friends are. Schools are a means of U.S. foreign investment, and education and a sense of community build the potential of human capital. Hopefully, you are starting to see that the occupation of territory is not a purposeless endeavor. The last but not least of our priorities is humanitarian aid. Believe it or not, this is what I spent most of my time doing during my deployment to Afghanistan in Operation Enduring Freedom 14. Personally, my team treated over 10,000 Afghan nationals medically, distributed thousands of dollars in clothing and household goods from humanitarian aid and civilian donations, and financed the education of hundreds of Afghan children by hiring educators. At first, I thought this was out of line considering that our country is facing severe financial constraints, until I realized that the funding amounts consisted of foodstuffs like rice and beans. Not to mention that most educators in our district traded service for security, a task already accomplished through the first priority previously discussed. Now that I've shown you the soldier's lens oriented on the mission and the justification, you need the soldier's lens oriented on our enemy, terrorists. Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and practically all other terrorist organizations and insurgents do not adhere to international humanitarian law. I knew that my enemies would try to kill me, torture me, dismember me, rape me, and hang me on display if I let them. Insurgents will wear U.S. uniforms, no uniforms, and the uniforms of our allies in order to deceive and kill our soldiers. This enemy exhumes the bodies of allied Afghan forces despite the contradiction to their religion, which they enforce with brutal violence should civilians in Afghanistan speak out against Islam. Still, these insurgents use their wives as human shields during direct action initiatives and carry away the weapons of their fallen in order to claim NATO violence against civilians. I won't lie, losing friends made me want to get on their level, but I didn't. I found solace in my teammates and in their capacity, especially when they would say things like not to give a shit what those clowns do, because we aren't them, and we're the good guys. For me and mine, their actions showed their character, and our actions showed ours. We said what we meant, and we meant what we said. Although the example I'm about to share with you is a short-term event, I believe that we are all now equipped with the lenses to recognize the most important pieces of this puzzle: life and freedom. On day one of a 5-day mission that consisted of the 4 priorities mentioned earlier, I did the following in the face of the enemy. I saw an explosion in the vicinity of Captain Tinsley's GMV. My teammate hopped on my 4-wheeler and we hit the gas through an IED minefield toward our brothers. Upon arrival, I observed the vehicle engine devastated by an IED blast. I rendered aid to my friends. When we received fire, I put the .50 caliber machine gun into action and went to work. Weapons were my specialty. Our senior medic and I loaded John onto a stretcher and said our goodbyes. The medevac came in and we loaded John onto the bird along with 2 other wounded brothers who not only insisted on walking, but pulling security while John boarded his first of many flights home. Everyone was a hero that day, but the leadership gave me and my medic Bronze Stars for valor. There were approximately 25 other Special Forces soldiers receiving the same award for far more impressive feats the day Major General Uripas pinned me in my medic. And as a matter of fact, I know of another person sitting in this room who wears the same award, and you'd never know it. These men were on my team, if the slide will change. Captain John Tinsley and Staff Sergeant Andrew Britton Mahalo are no longer with us. John died on August 12, 2009, and Andy died on April 25, 2012, 9 days ago. No matter what your political stance is, I hope that you see that their ultimate sacrifice is in the name of the honorable, and the just, and not the disgraceful atrocities that you see throughout the news. Our military's use of force is transformed throughout our lives, and so is our support. Today, United States citizens take it upon themselves to shake soldiers' hands because you guys understand the troops are self-appointed guardians. Most of the guys I know don't get paid enough, and they do it anyway. They don't see their families for years at a time. They get your gifts, though. The candy, the flags, the Hooters magazines and catalogs and calendars, the Christmas gifts, and the letters from kids. The stuff y'all sent brought me back when I really needed to get away from it all, and it really kept me sane. When rounds fly and life is precious, it's the brothers you watch out for, but ultimately the people back home that me and my teammates protected. They know you care, and they appreciate it, even when they tell you that you won't ever really understand what it's like. But that's a good thing, and that's why we're the good guys. Know that from all the day ones of Special Forces training until the day that I can stop getting these tattoos, that this transformation of conflict will assuredly yield two results: friends lost and freedom sustained, both Afghani and American alike. Thank you for your capacity as caring Americans, for every time you shake a vet's hand in airports, and for the time you took today to listen to me and my colleagues. Deo Presso Liber, at all cost. Thank you.